the meeting for
We
the,
got 2 minutes, technically. A minute.
Oh, just changed.
Sorry.
call to order the meeting for the Harwich Conservation Commission for October 20th, 2021. A number of items. A public announcement. There is the opportunity to join this meeting from a computer, tablet, or smartphone. The login information is available online at for the agenda for the meeting, which you can access rather than going through all of the login information and everything else. If there is anybody else that would like to log in, please go onto the Town Hall website, go onto the Conservation Commission, and you'll be able to pull up today's agenda, and you can find the login information there. So, that being said, the first item on the agenda, we have a number of requests for determination of applicability.
Ernie, there's actually a quick discussion item first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that completely. Harwich County Fire Department, Harwich Fire Department is requested to use Thompson Conservation Area for the Barnstable County Tech Rescue Team drill in November. Welcome.
Good evening. How are you? Thank you.
Thank you.
The county funds our field technical rescue team. They do all disciplines, which is trench rescue, high angle rescue, water rescue. And one of the things that they're working more on is large area search. So we use this particularly with the number of Alzheimer's patients and everything else that get involved with, looking through the woods. We've had a couple people get lost up in the Punkhorn. So they want to do a drill. It's a 2-part drill. They're going to do a command officer class a couple of days before at headquarters. And then the field part, they would like to use Thompson Field. And it would be basically land navigation, so GPS and compass work. And then second station would be a drone station. And the third station, they would hide a victim somewhere and then, have the people, the team go out and find it. There shouldn't be any equipment or anything in the field. It shouldn't be invasive at all, other than the dog walkers that are normally there, which would impact them a little. We would use the parking lot on the 39 side. That's pretty much the gist of it, but it's a great opportunity. It's a team that we do have personnel that are, so it's trained in Harwich firefighters as well as firefighters from across the county.
Wonderful. Good. Terrific. How long will it last again?
Probably about 4 hours total.
Okay.
So and be done. We probably finish up with lunch and end of it.
All right. Great. Amy, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I would just ask is to have as much lead time notice available as possible as to the date of that. We can get it because it is a very popular area.
Yep.
And it will raise some questions. So if we know in advance, we can put it on the Facebook page for the town. I can post it in the kiosk, get the word out there that, this isn't allowed, this is a drill,
Yep.
and not, real. But, and that it's nothing for people to be worried about. So that's all. It is your land, so permission for use is through you. But as long as we knew ahead of time, I recommend yes.
Are we going to post signs on the property?
A kiosk. Actually, I might actually put signs up too because not everybody looks in the kiosks.
Right.
But we would post it again on the town Facebook page. I can get it to the dog, Jen Harrington, who operates there, the police page. There's a big following there, so we can get the info out.
And it'd be the November 4th.
November 4th.
November 4th is the day the drill, and I'll finalize the times.
Perfect.
But it'd be November 4th, and it'd probably be about a half day. The drills are usually 4 hours.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
You
Thank
do need to vote on it,
Yep,
so.
sure. Any comments from the commissioners? Mark?
Well, I fully support it.
Good. John?
Just, I want to confirm that there are going to be no hazardous chemicals of any sort used in this.
We won't be using any equipment other than hand equipment like GPSs and compasses and stuff like that. A drone, there won't be any. We're not going to flow any water. We're not doing any of this. Not exercise per se.
Okay, great, thank you.
Good. Stan?
Just a quick, so you're gonna allow everybody else to be there
Yep.
normally?
Yeah, which would be real life. So that's adds to it, doesn't take away from it.
Yeah, okay.
Great. Jim?
I have no questions.
Great. Terrific. I have no questions at all. So we have a motion on this?
I'll move to approve the request from the Harwich Fire Department to use Thompson Field Conservation Area, the Barnstable County Tech Rescue Team drill in November.
I'll second.
Second.
All All in favor?
Aye.
We're all set?
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Now we get to the request for determination of applicability. Agenda is for the Island Pond Cemetery area, vegetation management around the Lily Pond. Robin, welcome.
Thank you. Can I put this off while I talk?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. So around the Lily Pond and Island Pond Cemetery is sassafras and buttonbush. So the sassafras is starting to creep up and encroach upon graves that are currently there. 3 of the members went out to the cemetery today to view it. And we're looking at going from, there's a Weeks lot, and we'd like to go 4 feet from the Weeks lot along the water, along the edge of the pond, down to where the weeping willow is.
Weeks being one of
The burial
interments
sites.
there.
Yeah. And then on the side of that is a shearing lot, and they had sassafras growing into that lot as well, so we would like to, and then vista prune the button bush only. We have the largest collection of button bush, I believe, on Cape Cod, around that little pond. And so we want to just vista prune it and keep it low so we can still see the pond, because it's now starting to grow a little higher than it was originally.
Okay, wonderful. Good. Amy?
So this is only along a small section of the pond. It's the northerly section closest to the 4 feet off this lot, that's the most, correct me if I'm wrong, that would need to be cut back. And again, because it is immediately and kind of encroaching on those graves. Robin has gotten administrative approval for minor maintenance in the past, but I said this was the better way to go, because this is, 3-year permit. And it just allows for a little bit more maintenance. The button bush will stand a little bit of what we call lateral pruning. That's basically taking the top leader out and creating more of a shrubby mass rather than encouraging upward growth. So it should be able to handle that with really no problem. It's quite the healthy stand there. So with the conditions that photos be taken, that we meet on first, with the person who's going to be doing the work, we'll put some flags out so they know exactly where they can go. Taking photos immediately thereafter, that way you have documentation for next year of kind of your limitations where you can go. And then if there's any slope disturbance near that Weeks lot, because there is kind of a slope there, that you reseed that area with a native grass mix. But with that, I would recommend, it is technically in the buffer because it's a little bit up the slope from the wetland. It is pretty close to the wetland slope. So I would recommend a -3 determination approval.
All right, thank you. Comments?
No questions.
John?
No comments or questions.
Stan?
No comment.
Jim?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't feel that I'm ready to vote on this until an actual plan showing the area where work is going to be done and sort of the management plan as to how you're going to do the pruning and all that. Now, granted, you did point out things on the site inspection today, but that was an informal, sort of site inspection. It wasn't part of our formal meeting and our formal hearing on this matter. And I feel we need the plan and the management plan to enter into the record before I'm ready to vote on this.
So Amy would be doing the vista pruning with me, because I don't know how to do, well, just show me how to assist.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah, yeah.
physically do it.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be a conflict.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll come back with a plan for you? Is that what you're
I
looking
would
for?
What are the
Yeah,
purview of the
before I'd
commission?
be ready to vote on this matter, I would need to see a formal plan that we could enter into the record so that, when you completed the work, we'd have a plan to go by to check before we gave a certificate of compliance.
Okay.
Thank you.
I agree with that, and then that's also what Amy would use as she reviews the work when it's actually done. So I think that's an important part that we generally ask for from this kind of work.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
Good.
So, do you want to, I mean,
I
we
can
don't,
just come back.
how much time it's going to come? Well, if we continue to a date certain, you don't have to re-notify your butters because we're saying it at a public meeting.
Okay.
Or,
It shouldn't take me long to get the plan drawn up. I can do that, and I'll actually place all of the grave spaces that are currently on the map as well.
That would be
I'll
very helpful.
overlay it so that way you can see where I'm exactly talking about.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah, I can do that.
so,
Do you know approximately when you'd be able to get that completed to come back to us?
It
with
would
that
probably
plan?
only take me a week to complete that, but, so when is your next meeting?
our next meeting is the 3rd, but I would need the new plan a week from today. So by the 27th.
By the 27th? I can
Is
do
that
that.
something you could do?
Yeah.
Okay, well then I would like to make a motion to continue this hearing until November 3rd.
Yeah, Second? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Robin, we have on the agenda for the next item, which is new access path to the Island Pond Trails and to install a split rail fence around the proposed parking area.
Correct. So, about just doing, split rail fence around the existing graves so people wouldn't drive on them. And then just doing a split rail fence that abuts the trail system to the left of it. So in your packet, you do have a map that we drew. And, we walked it today. And, right now, you go down this hill and it is extremely steep. And if we went to the left of where people are actually using it now, it's a very gradual walking area. And there wouldn't be any trees or anything removed from there, just low shrubs that are growing there. If, they did look at possibly keeping the existing trail, but I think we'd lose those 2 trees if we had to dig into the hill to do stairs. I'd rather not lose, Island Pond lost 250 trees in the tornado. We had over 200 trees that were damaged, so altogether was 400 and something trees that were compromised during the tornado in 19. And I don't want to take out a single tree. So if we don't have to, I don't want to. We're in the process of trees there, as a matter of fact. So this trail system would connect, which is all Marceline Arboretum. It connects the Island Pond Cemetery with the conservation walking trails. It's a very visited area. In the summertime, there is constant traffic coming up and down where that hill is. So we kind of want to make it so they have a pathway to walk down, and I kind of wanted to put a split rail fence to the left of it to keep people away from where the wetland actually is.
Okay, thank you. Amy?
And we would be coming back later for the parking lot. Part of it, though.
All right.
Yeah.
so the trail itself, Robin approached me a while ago asking the better alternative for the conservation perspective. Generally speaking, the closer you are to a wetland, the less favorable. However, given the conditions of the slope, that would be a little bit farther, its steepness, you'd need to install stairs, you'd probably compromise the root systems of a couple of oak trees, and you'd still be in the buffer zone to the wetland if you did that, but you'd be a little closer to the wetland if you go to the south side, which is where Robin is proposing to snake the path through, having to take down any major vegetation and have it be a shallow enough slope so that stairs are not needed. And I think fence to delineate the, to keep people away from driving on the graves, as well as a section or two of split rail fence where the trail would go closest, not right up to, but closest to the wetland, it would be appropriate. 4-foot wide trail kind of lined with just tree trunks, essentially. This is how we do most of our trails, with the exception of the 2 sections of split rail.
All right, thank you. Comments, Mark?
No questions.
John? A couple comments I had. So the trail will go into the 50, as we understand it.
Yes.
Based on our discussion today. I mean, I'm in favor of putting split rail fences along the access to the entrance to the parking lot.
Yeah.
Because I know those gravestones on each side of it are fairly close to
Right.
that. But I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of putting split rail within the 50. I mean, we generally take a hard stance on any sort of fencing in the no disturb zone. I'd be more in favor of a sign that says trail to Island Pond or something like that, that just directs people down the path. I think once they get to that path, they probably won't deter from that because of the growth, the undergrowth that's on each side of it. So I'm not necessarily in favor of the split rail beyond that. And just as a comment, when I was leaving the parking lot today, I had a tough time getting out of there. I had to put my truck in two-wheel low to get out of that area. So, it's just something to be, when you come back with a proposal on the parking area.
Yep.
We talked about whether you,
Some type of hardener or something.
yeah, I don't know what you would want to do, but something to bear in mind. Stan?
Amy, I'm just going back to your notes here on the site visit about an actual delineation of the wetlands and request for variance. And I didn't,
Yep. So technically, any work in the 50-foot needs a variance request.
Okay.
That's a request that can be made in writing, you can request it here. Typically, the commission, a path through that area, 4-foot wide max is typically granted variances. But technically, yes, thank you for reminding me, you do need to formally request that variance, because that's our no disturb zone under the bylaw. Anything else, Dan?
well, do we have to actually have a delineation done?
Really kind of up to the commission, because there's not, it's trail, not gonna be any improvements, no hardening, no structure. They're not, the vegetation that essentially you're gonna be mowing down is mostly poison ivy. We have a map, it's not a certified site plan, but
Right.
it's for a trail, so. And I directed Robin to do an RDA like this, because in this past, we've approved, like, the Harwich Conservation Trust with an RDA for a trail process, without a certified site plan.
And I do agree with you about not having the split, I know we talked about having the split rail fence along the pathway there, but really, once it's cut, I mean, I can't imagine people are gonna go off the path and
Yeah.
start
Few
bushwhacking.
signs will
through the
probably direct them
woods or
where they
anything,
need to be.
so-
Yeah, it's pretty dense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
that's all I have.
Thanks, Dan. Jim?
Okay, my comment on this is pretty much the same as it was on the previous one. Before I be ready to vote, I would like to see a more detailed plan. I would like to see the delineation of the wetland. I would like to see a detail of exactly where the path is going to go and the width of the path and the exact location of the split rail fences. So before I would be ready to vote, I would like to be able to see that plan.
Do you feel that's necessary? Amy?
Based on past practice with other, and trail work such as this, we haven't necessarily held fast to that standard. So in this particular case, I can see for the pruning, maybe being a little bit more necessary. I think this one is not necessary for a certified site plan.
Any other comments on that?
I would agree with Amy. I think the simplicity of this project does not warrant that.
Good, thanks, Mark. Any comments from the audience, public, on this or the prior proposal? Okay. So hearing none, do we want to make a proposal on,
Well, she's gotta come back and request the variance.
that's true. So we do need that. Yes?
You can grant the variance, you can ask for it
I can ask for variance now?
from the 50-foot. It's up to you. I mean, I think it's very small, what we're talking about here. You're not asking to put structure in. If we can agree not to do the split rail fence, you're not asking for structure. We can put it in the record that you're requesting the variance, and then the commission can grant it, if you see fit.
Well, then, one other question then. I'm trying to remember, is this the path shown here that we agreed on?
It's on this. You
Okay.
should have a copy of this.
Yes. It's up to what you're comfortable with,
Yeah.
but if she's requesting it of the record,
If anybody's interested in making a motion.
Motion to approve the RDA for 15 Island Pond Road, map 40, parcel V3 for a new access path to Island Pond Trails from the Island Pond Cemetery, without the installation of a split rail fence and with the marking of the transition in, with a sign that clearly points out to users of that trail which direction they should be proceeding to get down to the existing Island Pond Road.
Okay, thank you. Any comment on the motion? Second? All in favor? Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion passes then. All right, thank you,
Okay,
Robin.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you in a few weeks.
Next item on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability for 49 Saquatucket Bluff Road, an after-the-fact dwelling addition. You're a proponent for this?
hold on, David. Try again. Can't really hear you. Our channeling team person's saying sometimes the headsets pose a problem.
That's not gonna work.
Are you all set?
We can't hear you. Yeah, David, you can use the call-in number on your phone, which is on the agenda. And Mr. Chairman, if you want to go to the next one and then come back to this, to give David time to do it, it should take just a minute.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
David will get right back to you.
So the next item is a request for determination of applicability for Route 28, map 10, parcel W2-2 for an emergency septic. You have a proponent?
I think this should be Rick Judd, who was on before. Okay.
Nothing. All right. Should we go back to,
Hang on, David's trying to call, I think. Yeah. But we could see him before, we can't see him now. I'll be happy when we don't have to do this anymore.
He might have stepped away.
Huh?
He might have stepped away.
He might
Looks
have.
like he, oh, now
Well, I
that's,
can't see, yeah, we're in the
Mr.
chat
Teddy
now,
was
so we
trying to
can't see
dial
the
in.
list of people. Dave's trying to call in. On. Thanks, Jamie.
let's move on to the next one in the interest of time.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is a request to amend an order of conditions for 397 Route 28, map 39. This is the Handler Automotive lot that we've talked about before, and this application is for an emergency building removal. Welcome.
Hello, can I take this down to speak?
You certainly can.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Conservation Commission for having me here tonight. We certainly do appreciate all your efforts. Do you want all these?
I'll take them.
Yeah. Sure. My name is Jeff Handler, and I am one of the owners of the property at 390 Main Street, or Route 28, in Harwich Port. And I'd first like to express our sincere appreciation to the commission and Amy for all the help and guidance you have given us throughout the pretty intensive process of remediation of this property, which I'm happy to say is about 95% done. Without your counsel and your help and the support and the interest, it would have been a much more difficult task for us to achieve the end result of actually a higher level of remediation than was mandated by the state. That being said, again, for the record, I'd like to say thank you to all of you, especially Amy and Melissa. I guess I'm here tonight to close the circle on a request to amend by way of my request for an emergency permit to demo both buildings. We felt as a group, the owners, that those two buildings have become such a public safety issue that it would be in the best interest of everybody if we could demolish those two buildings sooner rather than later. There were numerous phone calls over the last 2 years to police and fire with respect to fires in the building, drinking in the building, parties in the building. Parts of the building would sometimes fly off during high winds and can go in any direction. And the last straw for me actually was during the parade, when there were people parked at our property to watch our Cranberry Harvest Parade. And when I was in the parade, when I walked by, I saw people, and for me, that was it. I couldn't sleep with a clear conscience knowing the buildings were standing and unsafe. So I reached out to Amy, and I put in a request for demolition, emergency demolition, with the understanding that we will retain our right to have the slabs, per the existing conditions that we provided you all, for the future potential repurposing, rebuilding. So I am here now to answer questions or comments from the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy?
So the formal process for this, Mr. Handler approached me, provided with letters from police, fire, that the health and safety hazard, the conservation, or myself on behalf of the commission has the ability, if it's deemed a public health and safety hazard, to grant an emergency certification, which I did do on your behalf. As part of the emergency certification process, the applicant is required within 30 days to file with the Conservation Commission. Normally, that's in the way of a notice of intent, but seeing as how we already have an open order for the project, I said, let's just make it nice and clean and let's amend it. So just as a reminder, the larger of the two buildings, the commission had already approved to demo under the original permit. So really, all that was required for this emergency permit was the demo of the smaller building, which is closer to the wetland. And you said the foundations have remained. It's,
The foundation of being closest to the water.
Okay.
The southernmost building, the smaller building in that slab. In our effort to not work on the other side of that building, the concrete slab just evaporated under the weight of the excavator.
yep,
And to the point that it actually had to be removed in order for the demolition of that to continue. So that slab is now gone, but the footings we salvaged, based on our conversation of trying to do the best we could and not go around the other building, which would have been in the 0 to 30.
Yeah.
And a pretty unsafe way to even try to demo that building. We have the footings under there, but the slab, I mean, it was about that thick. It had to go,
Okay.
so.
This is an amendment request to formally approve the emergency order, if you will. And as long as, one of the conditions of the emergency order that I issued was to make sure the site was stable afterwards, after the demo, and all the debris was immediately removed from the site. So with those, even though that's already been finished, those conditions now kind of go on to this permit, and I would recommend approval of the amendment. And we don't necessarily, in the future, we can talk about future use and footprints and all of that, but this is really just for the demo.
Okay.
Okay?
Good, thank you. Mark, any comments? John?
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just curious about the business about the slab, so to
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Mr. Ketchum.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
take
you.
this off. I want to understand the status of the slabs. You just explained the slab under the seaward building there, and there is an existing slab for the main building that was
Yes.
closer to the road?
Yes.
And so that remains in place. And you may or may not be coming back to us and talking to us about something you're doing with that slab. I guess my question is more about the slab that you removed, and it's as much for Amy as for you, which is does any action that we take today in approving this serve as a binding commitment to agree on anything about the slab which has been removed?
To my knowledge, no. That being said, I've spoken with Mr. Handler and said, if things come in the near future, plans for that area, the commission, something was recently there. If something doesn't come for many years as a proposal, then the commission may not see that as a, pre-existing structure out there. So the footings are there, so that does give some evidence there. And we do have the site plans that show the pre-existing buildings. But like I said, if it's, sooner rather than later, it's one thing. If it's many years down the road, then I would say it may not be an existing structure anymore.
Thank you. So
Sorry
just-
if it's a little ambiguous, but
So, just my follow-up is, given that you removed the slab, did you put anything in its place? Did you put topsoil down and reseed?
Yes, we had extra topsoil from the part of the remediation that we mobilized, because then there was quite a big unsafe hole where that slab was. So we brought in that fill and the topsoil and graded and seeded to stabilize. Seeding that will happen shortly, but in an effort to make sure that we stabilize that bank, because that is very close to the 0. I mean, it's literally like 15 feet away from the top coastal bank there.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, I just want to clarify.
Sure.
When you say the footings, I mean, it's sticking above the ground right now.
The footings are?
themselves.
No, we covered those.
Yeah.
We covered those in an attempt to stabilize that. The level change was pretty significant. So we filled in that area over those footings to prevent runoff erosion from going
Because
down.
I wasn't as concerned about the slab, figuring that the footings are still there, showing what was there, the building. But now that's been buried,
can be located.
can locate it in the future. Because I think originally, when this was all discussed for the original order conditions, I think we were discussing the possibility of tearing that building down anyways, and you were just trying to make sure that you were right, you were preserving your right to build in that footprint, which.
That's correct.
So I don't think we had, or I didn't have much of a problem with us tearing it down at that point, so. I don't
We were
have-
advised against tearing it down. But like I said, to the greater good of the community and the safety, it needed to come. I don't think it would have made it through the winter, honestly.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying, so I think back then we were considering allowing that to be done. You just wanted to preserve your right for the footprint, so
That's right.
I'm all set.
I have no questions.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have no comments either, and I guess with respect to the discussion around the footprint and the slab and everything else, my perspective is that in the original meetings, we've grandfathered the footprint. And even if you had just basement in there, I mean, so long as it complies with the footprint, then I think we've already discussed that scenario in this situation. One thing I did notice when I drove by either this week or last week, you had irrigation people in there. They had taken out the temporary irrigation. Was that it?
No, what they did is they installed irrigation out of your jurisdiction. And they moved the above-ground irrigation in Concom's jurisdiction of those tracks and the machines to get to and from the buildings.
All right.
Still, we are having the most difficult time sourcing plants, believe it or not, to stabilize and plant along the coastal bank. So it has been advised by the BSC group not to remove the temporary irrigation, because if we find those plants in the next month, we're going to put them in the ground. And if not, we'll blow the system out, put the plants in the early spring if we can find them. But per the order, we are allowed temporary irrigation to get those plants started.
For
So we
two
didn't
years.
touch those.
2 years, right?
I'm sorry?
2 years?
No, the
Honestly.
permit, well, the permit will be, so also, I mean, your existing conditions plan, which shows the foundations, that's valid until June of 2023.
Right.
Just so you know.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the life of his permit.
Okay. After that time, then you'll have to reapply for the irrigation.
Absolutely.
If you want to maintain it as a temporary basis.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Good. Any comments from the audience or public on this? No. Hearing none. Can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to amend the order of conditions for 397 Route 28, map 13, parcel D1, for the emergency building removal.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hanford. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Appreciate you as well.
Good night. You're welcome.
So we'll go back to the request for determination of applicability for 49 Saquoteca Bluffs Road, after-fact dwelling addition. Are we good with the audio?
Hopefully, so.
I think we've got you. That sounds good.
So this issue came to light, as I understand, from an inspection that Amy made, or a site visit made during the summer. It was discovered that the addition had been constructed in 1991 with a benefit of a building permit, but that conservation approval had not been obtained for the addition. And so that is the purpose of this filing. It's an addition that was constructed 30 years ago. And so I discussed this with Amy, and we went with a request for determination of applicability. So I think I would just open it up to any you may have.
Okay, thank you. Amy?
So it came to light during a certificate of compliance check that there was an addition put onto the building after original construction, but within, post 1978, which is the Wetlands Protection Act. The addition is approximately 90 from the top of the coastal bank. I just thought it was really pertinent, considering, I mean, the property is in the process of selling, to have an accurate plan of record for the property going forward, to see what's there now versus what may be proposed in the future. So I thought the request for determination was the accurate way to do, was the appropriate way to do this, to get an accurate site plan. I think had this been proposed in 1991, it would have easily been granted by the commission. We didn't have mitigation requirements back then. The lot has, and for the, everything else, the lot has remained in very good shape. It's very natural, many trees, no, doesn't appear like any chemicals are being used on the property. It's just very natural Cape Cod area. So I would recommend a -3 determination for the after-fact work, approving this to make this new site plan the plan of record we have for the property.
Okay, thank you. Mark, any comments?
No questions.
John? Dan? Jim?
No question.
A couple of questions I had. So, did the applicants own the property in 91 when this work was done?
Yes, and they were the applicants when the dwelling was constructed, I believe, first constructed in 1982,
So that was,
perhaps.
that was the Pettengills, is that right?
That's correct.
All
And
right.
it is the Pettengills.
And why are they applying now for this?
That was at my direction.
So
Go ahead.
no, I heard Amy say that was at her direction. As I indicated, I believe Amy discovered this summer that this addition had onto the original permitted dwelling in 1991. Again, it obtained a building permit at the time, and but it was discovered that Conservation Commission approval had not been obtained for the addition that is, as Amy said, it's 92 to 95 feet away from the top of the coastal bank.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I did have the ability of speaking with Mr. Pettingill, and he did inform me that he thought it was taken care of because he tasked the contractor at the time with getting all the applicable permits, and that was where the oversight, I think, was. And back in the 90s, we didn't, you know, there wasn't as much communication necessarily between conservation and building departments, so.
Reason I asked the question is generally in these sorts of situations, I mean, we consider a fine, you know, obviously whether it's just for the $300 because of the violation that took place, or something more than that. I guess my inclination is that in keeping with, you know, our prior practices, that a fine would be appropriate. The fact that these things come up and there's a transfer of ownership in the property is disturbing, because that's not the time to raise these issues. It should be followed through when the work is originally done. So if the applicants own the property and neglected to, whether they neglected to or to obtain the proper permits for this, I think it's a finable offense, and from my perspective. Open that up to the commissioners, whether anybody else is in agreement with that or not.
Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully disagree. Being in the construction field for quite a few years, there's been a lot of changes in personality and procedure in the last 35 or 40 years. I just don't feel it's appropriate to pass a fine along application. It doesn't seem to me like it was an intent to be malicious or avoid anything. I think it was probably more general procedure at the time.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I'm more inclined to agree with Mark. I mean, I have no idea about what practices were in 1992 in Harwich, but it seems so long ago, it's lost in the foggy mists of time as far as I'm concerned, and I think it would it wouldn't be appropriate.
Tim?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I also agree with Mark. This is the length of time from the violation to today. You know, we don't know what was going on in 1991. And, yeah, it doesn't appear that it was an intentional violation, just a simple oversight.
All right,
I'm in agreement with the others.
great. That being said, can we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the after-the-fact RDA with a -3 determination for 49 Sacotucket Bluffs Road with the condition of no fertilizers or chemicals in the 100-foot buffer.
And I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for bearing with my audio difficulties. Have a good evening.
No problem, thank you. All right,
Bye-bye.
going back to the request for determination for 81 Route 28, map 10, parcel W2-2 for an emergency septic replacement. Do we have audio on this one?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you. The septic has not been installed here, and so this is a request for determination to replace a failing cesspool that's compromised right now. It's cordoned off in the back of the property. The proposal before you, the sewer line, will connect to a monolithic tank and monolithic pump chamber that are within the AE flood zone, elevation 11. By force main, we go beyond the floodplain, go to the south, up the hill, and we install the distribution box and leaching area out of the floodplain. There are going to be a number of oak trees, pine trees in the back that will have to come down to trench and make sure we don't undermine a tree and drop it. So with that, I'll take any questions the commission may have.
Thank you. Amy?
This is purely land subject to coastal storm flowage. There are no wetland resource areas involved here. It would be to replace a cracked cesspool with a Title V septic system. I think that in and of itself is mitigation essentially for the work. I wouldn't necessarily require, because it's flood zone only, not habitat, not stability of banking. I wouldn't recommend necessarily requiring revegetation with trees in this particular instance. Again, I think just the environmental benefit here is failed cesspool out of here. So I'd recommend just that you let them reseed that area with a native mix, no fertilizers, chemicals, and approve with a -2 determination.
Thank you. Comments, Mark?
I would agree with Amy.
John?
I also agree.
Stan?
Same.
Jen?
I agree with Amy also.
And I assume this Captain's Row is not in the sewering plan at all.
I'm not positive. I mean, in areas in West Harwich are in a plan. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Regardless, still needs to be done on a sort of emergency basis,
Yes.
I assume. Okay, good. Any comments from the audience, public? All right, can we have a motion on this?
I'll move to approve the notice of intent for, where are we here?
81 Route 28.
For 81, this is an RDA, not a notice of intent.
Yes.
I'll move to approve the request for determination of applicability for 81 Route 28, map 10, parcel W2-2,
Second.
with a -2 determination.
Second.
And no fertilizer condition.
And no fertilizer on the affected area within the flood zone.
Do we have a second, please?
Yeah.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, commissioners.
Now, moving into the notice of intent that we have filed tonight. First one is for 2 Harwich Pines, map 103, parcel A, SA-9 for a septic installation.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
You can, thank you.
My name is Terry Hayes. I'm the principal for Buncon Services. This is an existing dwelling, 4-bedroom dwelling. It directly abuts Long Pond to the north. My client wishes to replace 2 cesspools that are unfortunately within the buffer, the 50-foot buffer, and install a new Title V septic system. The complication we have is that the building sewer exits underneath the basement slab. So we have to put the septic tank and a pump chamber within the 50-foot buffer. However, the soil absorption system will be out of the buffer. It'll be beyond 100 feet. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Amy?
Bump to a notice of intent instead of an RDA because the cesspools and where the proposed septic tanks themselves will be, is within the 50-foot buffer. But again, as Mr. Hayes said, the for the new Title V system is going to be outside the 100-foot buffer. This is a great improvement compared to where the existing cesspools are. So really the same conditions as the others. This is just closer to the water, which is what triggered the higher level filing. Reseed the area with a native Cape Cod grass, have a staked silt fence. There's a limit of work and no fertilizers and chemicals within the 100-foot buffer when this is all done.
Okay, great, thank you. So questions from the commissioners? Mark?
Fully understandable, very straightforward. No questions.
Scott?
No question.
Dan?
No question.
Do you have any questions?
No question.
Okay. Had no questions, I think you've addressed them already, so, any questions from the audience, public? Nope. Can we have a motion on this?
I'll move to approve the notice of intent for 2 Harwich Pines, 103, parcel S1A-9. See, do we need to add a no fertilizer provision here? I think we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so standard language for no fertilizer or the chemicals on the lawn within the 100-foot buffer.
Did we get the letter from the NHESP?
Yes, we received approval letter from NHESP.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Amy. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, notice of intent for 86 Squantos Path, map 100, parcel G1-2. This is a follow-up to the meeting we had at, the presentation at the last meeting. The placement of a kayak rack.
Good evening, Phil Cheney, landscape designer. Yes, the couple of issues that we had, one was the kayak rack location. Amy had suggested an alternate location. Revised plans that I delivered showed in the location that she requested. Also included a simple detail of typical construction for a kayak rack like that, as was requested as well. Additionally, the NHESP letter has come in with a no-take decision. So I think we should be all set.
Terrific. Good.
I think you should be all set. So, as requested, they moved the kayak rack up the slope a little bit, so it's never in risk of flooding. Still within the path itself, so no vegetation would be removed. They submitted a sketch for the kayak rack, which was in your Dropbox, and that will become part of the record. And we received a no-take, as you say, letter from NHESP. So with those things, I would recommend approval of the project.
So since this is a sort of a continuation of the presentation at the last meeting, then I assume any decisions that were made from that last meeting with respect to the rinse station, all the other expansion of the deck and all that sort of thing would apply as well.
Yep, so that would be part of this approval. You didn't approve any part of it last time.
Right.
So the rest of the project was new kind of set in the grade steps to prevent some erosion, a lot of planting.
Right.
The deck addition with the rinse station, that had the 50.
And the fertilizer prohibition would apply here.
The fertilizer
Not-
prohibition.
I mean, it's all
would-
naturalized anyhow, so I don't think
There's no
that's an
lawn.
issue. Yeah,
No.
exactly, so,
Correct.
okay, good. So can we have a motion on this?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, but
Okay.
you didn't want to ask if any.
Oh, I'm sorry.
question?
I'm sorry, I thought we already went around. Shows you how fast these go. Mark, go
I was all
ahead.
set to second it, so it's all right. No, I'm good, I have no questions.
John,
No question.
Stan?
No question.
Yeah, so my
Okay.
presumption was right then,
Okay.
right?
No, I just wanted to double check.
Any audience or attendees? All right. Now we can have a
So now I'll
motion.
make a motion to approve the notice of intent for Spontus Path for the extension of existing deck with rinse station, landscape, kayak rack, and replacement of stairs with the conditions for, that we discussed, the no chemicals and fertilizer.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're good. Motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, moving along. Notice of intent for 123 Riverside Drive, map 4, parcel A1-A10, for a proposed pool, outbuilding, patio, and landscaping.
Evening all. Can everybody hear me okay? Heard, professional engineer with Baxter and I Engineering and Surveying. The homeowner, Kerry Sullivan, who's sitting to my right. We are here, continued from the hearing on September 5th. Notice of intent that's in front of you was open, but then was continued for further discussion. In that on the September 15th hearing, we discussed the enforcement issue, that there was some clearing that was done in the outer riverfront area that was unauthorized, unpermitted. Through that dialogue, there was some items that the commission identified that they wanted to address. Mr. Sullivan has taken care of those. There was a fine that was paid for those items. There was fill material that had been placed that has been removed, and he is stabilized it that following week from the hearing. And I think some of the commission members were out there today, and I know Kerry sent some pictures along to Amy and I, where that area is actually, very well stabilized already. So it's good growth out there. So just kind of wanted to go through that aspect. So I believe all the items that the commission had identified at the hearing on the 15th that Mr. Sullivan has addressed, and hopefully the commission members I saw today agree with that. So with that, I'd like to move into the notice of intent filing for the project in front of you, which is for a proposed pool and a pool house and associated hardscape with the pool, the patio around the pool, et cetera. The address of the site, as you know, is 123 Riverside Drive. The resource areas on this lot include coastal bank. We have riverfront area, which is riverfront to the Herring River, and we also have land subject to coastal storm flowage. The project that's proposed for the, again, pool hardscape, pool house, all falls outside of the 100-foot buffer to the coastal bank. It's outside of the floodplain area, and it falls within the jurisdictional area on the outer riverfront area. So we're in the outer riparian of the riverfront area. The proposed footprint within the outer riparian is approximately 3,750 square feet. This is actually reduced from the initial filing that we made, which was around 4,700 square feet. So we actually we reduced the disturbance of the outer riparian even further. As I stated, we're outside of the coastal bank buffer, et cetera. We have gone through and provided the calculations for the mitigation requirements that your regulations require at the 2-to-1 mitigation ratio. Defined on to the commission, as we discussed at the last hearing, that the mitigations plantings are separate from the restoration plantings that Mr. Sullivan is performing. So in summary, we're providing approximately 3,000, almost 3,500 square feet of mitigation 3496. We're also providing about 2,670 square feet of restoration area. And the total combined area for new vegetation that's going to be placed is 6,170 square feet approximately. So we believe that this project meets the spirit of your regulations and mitigation requirements. That the action and the restoration efforts that Mr. Sullivan has taken on already, that you feel that we have addressed your concerns with that. We believe that the project meets the necessary performance standards. Again, we're outside of the coastal bank buffer, so the coastal bank continues to perform as it is, and unhindered, unaltered. And then again, on the outer riverfront, outer riparian area, we believe that we're actually enhancing the riverfront area with the mitigation that you see in the plan. We're actually, the proposed area, as I said, is in the outer riparian. Much of the mitigation being performed is actually on the inner riparian and up very close to the river itself. So the quality of that mitigation that's being provided is significant and is of a higher value than the disturbance for the proposed pool area in the outer riparian. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Amy?
Okay. So as per my write-up, I kind of crunched the numbers just as Mr. Eddy just did. So I won't go through them kind of verbatim again. What I will say is that as was proposed, there would actually be more vegetated area than there previously was prior to in the 200-foot buffer. And it's partially due to the fact that it became known that there was some area on the abutting Sullivan's property that was kind of thought to be the neighbor's, and that is 0 to 100 foot, the inner riparian zone. So I do agree that is a high value mitigation to be able to revegetate that area. I did work with them to come up with a general planting plan that I thought would best enhance the riverfront area for the property, kind of mixing species up to make it more natural. I did note that I think we should space out the cedars a little bit more, just to give them a little more breathing room. But yeah, I didn't think that would be a. But so that being said, while there is more than what was previously there, let me just go back to the regulations. So, riverfront in general, when you have a previously undisturbed lot, and this lot was recently created, the regulation is that there can be no disturbance within the first 100 feet. There was no disturbance within the first 100 feet. It was the 1 to 200. So that being said, if Mr. Sullivan had what his maximum that he could request is 5,000 square feet or 10% of the riverfront area on that lot, whichever is greater.
Correct.
What they're proposing is in the 2,000, mid-2,000 range of square footage of the lot, of the riverfront area, essentially.
For the hardscape,
Yes,
yeah. Yep.
from the hardscape.
Yeah.
So it meets, according to Wetland Protection Act and riverfront standards, it meets that. So where the conservation standards differ a little bit is that we would traditionally have requested a 2-to-1 mitigation for that square footage of hardscape. seeing that things got removed without authorization for the mitigation, you have to do restoration. So what that ends up being is, that for the commission to consider is, they're technically shy of mitigation, not restoration. That's accounted for. The commission could do a couple things. You could consider that they're revegetating much closer to the edge of the river, and providing that nicer inner riparian buffer, which is good for habitat stability, all those things. That we could also discuss the amount of hardscape that you do have. I guess I would want to ask too, I mean, the lawn area that you have near the patio, how large is that area? Could things be condensed? Because I feel like we're almost there, and I just want to, I guess I'll leave it up to the commission for your comments, but I see a couple of avenues of getting there. Okay?
I just want to say, the grass area that we talked about behind the pool, we shrunk everything working with Amy to get as close as we could. I have 2 little daughters. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. There's literally a 6-foot grass strip behind the pool that we have, 6 feet, 22 feet. It's very small. It's all we can get, if anything. In the mitigation area, as we is in a higher value area, closer to where the amount of lawn that you guys saw today, that my neighbor had actually encroached on my lawn that's fertilized and irrigated within the 100. We're going to remove that, mitigate it, and more or less put even a smaller area of grass strip just behind the pool. So I'd like to keep that if possible.
Okay, good, thank you. Comments, Mark?
Not yet.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I have a few things. I noticed out today that, you know, you did a great job getting grass cover over there. However, on the south side of the lot, there's a washout, and the silt fence that was in bad shape when we were there prior to the last meeting, is still in bad shape, and there's a washout and sand flowing over that silt fence that really ought to be fixed, and the washout be addressed.
That's outside of the 200. I understand it's washed out and gone onto the
All right,
neighbors, but
okay.
it's outside of the 200, but we will address it.
Just barely then, 200. Okay, all
Some of it
right.
is on the neighboring property,
What?
and some of it is on the neighboring property, but
That whole
if you
strip
could
was not
address
cleared
it.
by me. It was cleared by the neighbor who cut a road in to access his property, so we've kind of been working together. When he removed the loam on his property and cut that access road in, that's when it washed out from the silt fence, because he undermined the silt fence I had dug in.
Okay,
Just to kind of clear that up, it's
Okay.
outside of our work. But
right.
we'll work with him and make it stable.
thank you for clarifying that. So I have a couple of other comments. One is, just looking at your lawn area on the seaward side of the pool there, part of the plantings which are inside the outer riparian area are natives. You've got hydrangea and boxwood. I would suggest that you at least should not have any boxwood in there. But I would rather, I understand that that's ornamental, it's inside the fences, but I'm not sure how great an idea it is. And the other point is that as soon as you get outside of the riparian area, and I know it's not jurisdictional for us, but as soon as you get over that line, you've gone to all ornamental shrubs and things, and it might, since you're shy on the mediation here, you might consider, particularly along this berm on the north side of the property, you've got a lot of plantings there, which is great, but you might consider replacing some of that closer to the riparian with natives.
Where, I'm sorry, John, it was a little muffled because you're on the
I'm
mic
sorry.
there.
think I'm
Where are you
yeah.
talking about the additional potential mitigation?
So if you look on the north side, which is the bottom of the drawing
Yep.
here,
Yep,
for example, and I don't have a very good notion of how much area is involved here, but between apparently it's a fence with an access gate in it,
I
looks
see
like.
it. Yep,
And between there, and I don't know if that's another fence, which is part of a pool fence or something, that there's another fence apparently that goes right along the 200-foot riparian line. I don't know how much area that is, but, at least there and maybe extending a little more toward the road, you might consider things like maybe red cedars or something. But then I have one other question about the red cedars, which is, I know they're kind of a sensitive plant that sometimes struggles to get a foothold, and I'm just wondering what your thought about that is, Amy. It'd be a shame to plant, you're asking him to space them out, plant fewer, but it would still be a shame to plant those things and have them die. That's happened to me. Apparently healthy tree doesn't make it through a couple of years.
cedars are a little bit more temperamental when you're right at the top of the bank, near, right on Nantucket Sound. I don't think a little ways inward from the river, up the river from the Sound, I think they have a better chance here.
So we should just specify that there a survival rate for those.
Yeah, that would be part of our conditions when we get to, hopefully get to an approval anyways. But that does bring up a good point, John, is that the commission, while we do like mitigation generally within the jurisdictional area, if you have room just outside of the area and you might be short a little bit on your numbers, you might be able to beef up those areas a bit.
So what Karen and I were just talking about on that, he'd like to keep the plan where it's outside of the jurisdiction as on the plan that it is. The couple of things that I would submit is, and I think it is of significant value, the mitigation that's occurring in that inner riparian. The value of that is much higher than when we start getting out into some of those areas that we're talking about. Then the other aspect additional that Mr. Sullivan would be, willing to do is to pay that shortfall, pay the fee in lieu, if that's possible. That would be approximately $6,100 to take care of that shortfall. And he's providing, I think you will all see, a very large amount of plantings through both mitigation, restoration, et cetera. So we would propose that consideration if you'd be willing.
Okay, that's all I have.
Stan?
I have no question.
Okay, the only comment I have goes to what the proponent just mentioned, that I would be in favor of considering paying a fee in lieu of mitigation for the shortfall in the mitigation in this matter.
Okay. Yeah, generally, we the in lieu fees applicable where there's not an area on the existing lot to provide the mitigation, which is not the case here. They have the space, so I'm not sure that in lieu fees really are something we would want to allow here, basically. We're talking 1,524 square feet of mitigation that's a shortfall. There's certainly enough space on this lot to provide that 1,500 square feet. I think it's more a preference not to, as opposed to having nice lawn area. And from my perspective, I would rather have the mitigation replacing the lawn than have I don't think an in lieu fee really applies here.
Are you referring, if I could, just for clarification, again, the additional mitigation area, which, again, I know we're just dialogue here, but that, the area where it's outside of the riverfront area, doing the additional mitigation
Yeah,
outside
it doesn't
of
necessarily
the
have to be within our jurisdictional area. It can be anywhere on the lot.
It can get right, and there's value for habitat,
Yeah.
et cetera, yeah. there any, yeah, I mean, any other,
I'm not against it,
So-
whatever works.
Yeah.
so I mean, what, so it's this area along here, right? On the
Yeah.
landscaping plan, that would just be changing the planting types.
Did you hear what I said?
Do it
You're gonna be quiet.
I have another point to make.
Good, oh, no.
How about, just as an
Boy, I
option,
misread that one completely.
Sorry?
not just on the north of the lot, but also you have some area on the south.
On the
side.
south, that's what he was just saying, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And somehow make it contiguous if you
Or
can, but,
split it up, right? Half
Yeah.
on one side, half on the other.
yeah,
something
I
Right.
think you have the room to do it.
Yeah. So that would be my preference. John, you have another point?
It's just, one of the things about this lot and about a lot of places, you've got a lot of lawn, and while we have no standing to tell you what you can do with that lawn, there's still gonna be a significant impact of that lawn, because unless you decide to make a real Cape Cod there, which we would all love, if it's not a real Cape Cod lawn, and you're having, one of the local landscape services take care of it, it's almost without a doubt gonna be fed lots of fertilizer, which will find its way into the river, which is a big problem in Nantucket Sound and everywhere else. So as many square feet as we can get you to take up with some natives that don't need to be fed, and that applies also to all these ornamentals. I would suspect they will be fed. And according to normal practices, a lot of that doesn't get taken up by the plants. It ends up in the watershed and in the river, it's a Harwich money building sewers to try to mediate and mitigate the effects of that, but it's still a problem when you're pouring fertilizer onto your lawn and it leaches into the groundwater and then into the river and then into Nantucket Sound. So I would encourage you to do as much as you can to reduce that sort of impact.
We can meet the required amounts on the property.
Okay, great. So you want to come back to us with an expanded plan?
Yeah, if that's what you require, I mean, I was gonna ask if it's possible, and if it's not, I understand, but understanding that, we have an identified square footage, we have an identified strategy here for both along that northerly property line and the southerly property line to augment and modify. And is that something that we could ask for that to be a condition of approval, and that we coordinate that with Amy and, for a, final plan, and that it's conditioned on those requirements?
I think, given the history on this lot, and, I mean, there was a comment made earlier that there was no disturbance done in the 100 to 200, but I think that area behind the adjacent house, where there was the lawn area now, I think that would suggest there was disturbance in that area. So,
But not by the
by
applicant.
somebody. Okay, nonetheless.
It was before he owned it.
So I would prefer to see a amended plan for the plantings to cover 24 square feet. Amy, your thoughts on this?
That works. What I also do is, if that's the outstanding item here, if we're all in agreement that that's the outstanding item, in agreement that that would satisfy that, we can continue to the next meeting, which is November 3rd, but I also draft up what would be a draft approval, so that, because typically, if we closed on this tonight, I'd still have to draft a permit and then have them vote on it officially at the next meeting. Typically, you don't have to come to those. So it's not, you could either continue it and I don't draft up approval, and then we kick it, it would still be longer, but what I'm saying is your time frame isn't gonna be any different.
If
We're fighting wet
Right.
Yeah,
to try to get the work done, as on the last meeting when you guys asked if we could get the growth of the lawn.
Yeah.
We worked with you and we jumped on it literally 2 days later.
Yep, we did.
We got that. I would appreciate if you guys could work with me a little bit and have this be a condition, obviously before we get a final CO and you guys will inspect it, but at least so we can get our permits going for the pool and the outbuilding in the meantime. And we'll put the full amount in required by you guys on the property. And at the end of the day, it'll be done.
What it strikes me, I'm comfortable with the plan as it's presented. What we're talking is mitigation outside of the existing plan that we have in front of us here. So it would seem to me that conditionally approve moving forward with the plantings that are outlined here. Everybody's comfortable with what he's presented to us. Between now and the next meeting. I mean, if that's your timetable, if you want to start putting plants in the next 2 weeks.
No, I don't want to put plants in. I would like to get going on the pool and the building.
Oh, I don't see that that's an issue, really. Do you?
Well,
Yeah,
the time, so what I'm trying to say is the timeline's not gonna be any different for you.
yeah, I'm here.
Whether, it's still gonna be 2 weeks.
So, yeah.
Whether we, because it's a matter of when we get the permit out the door. And that depends on, so if we continue tonight, essentially agreeing that the conditions will be satisfied, we still have to issue the permit at the next meeting. That doesn't change things. So it's the same. No, it would be the same time frame. So what you'd be looking at is that the approval, hopefully, submittal of a revised plan. I'd love to have it in a week.
Yep, we can do that.
The commission, hopefully, it sounds like, seems amenable to that, getting the approval at next meeting. The permit would be issued a couple days after.
Can we file for our pool and building permit in the meantime?
Yes. Yeah, goes
It'll
through
be-
me and,
I just know everything's backed up, so. we're just
yep,
trying
no,
to
you can
get
do
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a procedural thing.
I don't
Go
think
ahead.
it's a slow you up at all.
So my recommendation is just, continue it to November 3rd. Understand we can get this planting plan in. Hopefully that's the last conditions and all of the needs will be met and we'll have the permit. I'll have a tentative permit drafted for you at that meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
So,
I'll move to continue until November 3rd and request that Amy prepare an order of conditions and permit for us to approve at the next meeting.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman, before we get started, I just wanted, on the next one, I wanted to let you know that November 3rd is now looking pretty busy. So if we have any more continuances, I'd recommend going to the 17th.
All right, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Next item on the agenda is a notice of intent for 0 Clearwater Drive, a new dwelling and appurtenances from map 73 parcels P94 and P95.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Hannah Raditz. I'm a wetland scientist with BSC. Also on the call, we have Creighton, also with BSC.
All right, afternoon, I should say.
And my name is Wesley Price, General.
So I'll go ahead and start the presentation. In front of you tonight is the construction of a new single-family on a lot. This will require lot work, including clearing and grading. Also included on the lot is a Title V septic system, which is outside of all jurisdictional resource areas, a walkover structure on the bank leading down to the pond below, and a workshop. The resource areas that are on this site is the 100-foot buffer zone to inland bank, which is at the bottom of the bank on the sandy beach that is runs up to Bucks Pond, and also natural heritage priority habitat, which runs up the slope and on to the top of the slope for the property. In terms of the disturbance that's being proposed within the 0 to 50, the only disturbance is a 104 square foot walkover structure that leads down a very steep and sandy bank. This is quite necessary. Traffic down that hill, as I know myself, when I went for the delineation, I was scrambling. It's quite sandy and steep, and this will protect the from being tracked over. The section that is required for the commission for the coastal walkover structure was left out of your plans by mistake. I do have a small image that I could walk around the room if it's easy. It is at least 1.5 feet off the ground, as is required for the entirety of the walkover structure, except for the top and the bottom, where they need to walk onto it and walk off. Within the 50 to the 100-foot buffer zone to the inland bank, we're proposing 1,065 square feet of building. That's a portion of the single-family dwelling and a portion of the workshop. Also is 1,180 feet of grading and site work on the top of the slope. Within natural heritage, it's just a small portion of the workshop at the top of the slope and the walkover structure itself. And we did receive a no-take determination just this week. We're not proposing any lawn within the 100-foot buffer zone to the inland bank. I know it's not called out on the plan. However, I'd like to at least have a 5-foot wide access around the single-family dwelling and access from the patio and at the deck, and access to, of course, the walkover stairs and the workshop, though that would be kept to a minimum. Just clearing and needing what's necessary in and amongst there to do any work. I believe that covers most of the important parts of this project. I might just turn it over to Matt Creighton to make sure I didn't miss anything.
No, I think that pretty much covers it. We'll be happy to take questions.
Okay, Hannah, I'm sorry, Amy.
Thank you. I've spoken with potential owners as well as Wes on the site, and just talked to them about the kind of the special parameters on this lot being, or 2 lots basically, but being treated as one. For an undeveloped property, if to do any disturbance, or to essentially do any disturbance within the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone does require 2-to-1 mitigation for proposed new structure. We talked about ideally trying to do that mitigation on site, looking into off-site mitigation, and then if there's no other option in terms of minimizing or mitigation, other mitigation, then you can look to potentially do in lieu fee, which is what you've requested to do as of, I think it was yesterday or the day before, putting in that request for in lieu fee instead of mitigation. In my opinion, you're not there yet. You have to prove that this proposed project is not going to have impact to the edge of wetland there and the interests thereof. You also have to show that you cannot minimize more to get more outside of our jurisdiction. So again, it's in lieu fees is not just, it's not a given, because we primarily are concerned with, preserving the ecological integrity of the lot. And only then, if you can prove that, would that be feasible. So some things that I would suggest you look at, and the commission can agree with me or not, is to see if you can minimize some disturbance, bring structures closer. Does the workshop, can it be somehow attached? Again, decrease some disturbance. I'm also not exactly sure where it says proposed patio. I don't know where the limits of that are on your plan. Go
The
ahead.
patio has to do with the retaining wall. It sort of follows the corner, the retaining wall being that skinny line.
Yep.
And then it just sort of fades in and connects back to the building.
Okay.
But
Like a line there, essentially, and square footage of disturbance of
Yep.
hardscape.
Yep, that was included.
Perfect. So if you could just fix that, that would be helpful, just so we know a dimension. And revegetation within the limit of work area, kind of what your plans are for there. So you have to look at it, just more fully vet a couple more alternatives before I can make a recommendation for you. Okay? That's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Amy, one of the questions that had come up internally with us when it came to the in lieu mitigation and how you guys would work that was basically, we're we're clearing out an area, but we're not planning to install a lawn in that area, let's say within that 100-foot, and we are looking to do some plantings, is that counted as mitigation for the structures? Because we weren't really sure how to calculate that with the new regulations with you guys, and so we really wanted to kind of open that up and ask how you guys calculate that out.
That's a good question. Sometimes, well, if the area was naturally kind of sparse in vegetation, we have some lots that were previously disturbed and revegetating those, I would say, and the commission, it's their interpretation, so please, they'll wait. But in some cases, revegetation of a disturbed area is mitigation, but when you are disturbing an area to put a structure in and then revegetating that, I would not consider that as mitigation, because you're disturbing in order to put something in and putting it back. So you're essentially putting it back. It's not going above. And in this particular lot, you know, it is very well vegetated. So there's not a whole lot of room for, you know, you don't want to put so many plantings that they outcompete each other well either. So and there might be a few areas where you could sneak some plantings in that, like in the 50, but it's pretty well vegetated there.
We did a quick calculation just this afternoon. I wanted to know from Kieran, the surveyor, how much area we had to work with between the 100 buffer zone, which it's a little hard to see on the plan, but it goes through the far section of the house, straight up into the limit of work line. So roughly within there's about 2,000 square feet, which could be planted with wildflowers, native grasses in that area, except for obviously just pathways to get to and from the structures and around the edge of the house. So that 2,000 square feet was taking into account also being able to access around the house and to the walkway and the workshop.
Okay.
We have that, but I understand that from your explanation that won't count as mitigation, more like restoration.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's my interpretations. Definitely ask the commission how they feel about that.
Yeah, and
okay?
the only other thing I just wanted to add to that is we do have area outside of jurisdiction that instead of putting in lawn, we may be able to put some native plants. And I know that obviously the whole site's forested, so we're kind of handcuffed a little on that. But I didn't know if that's something the commission would consider as well, being that we could make it a lawn and it's outside jurisdiction.
Stuff to chat about. I would say if there's any way to pull structures a little bit farther from the resource, that should be looked at first. Certainly potentially an option too, as you heard in the previous case, in certain instances we can consider other mitigation. Okay.
The orientation of the house as it stands now, just the house, not anything external, can't be moved closer to any of the lot lines. We had Karen check this today to make sure that where it is exactly, we can't pull it closer to the road or closer to either of the lots. And the septic system is also being an issue up in that far corner. So that's where the single-family dwelling stands.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Jim, you want to start off? Question?
Yeah, I mean, my basic comment is in line with some of these comments. With regard to reduce, I'd like to see a reduction in the hardscape within the 100-foot buffer zone. And while you say that the lot lines sort of prohibit the house from being moved further away from that, why was it designed to be within that in the first place? Why are there components of the house that was designed to be within the 100-foot buffer area? And, maybe some of that could be at least rethought a little bit. Also, why is the workshop being put, not only within the 100-foot buffer, but closer to the, to Buck's Pond than the houses? And so those are sort of questions that I can answer to before, I do any further consideration. Also, I would like to see how you propose to do the stairway down, down the slope.
Oh, you mean like the equipment that would be used, or?
No, the actual the design of the stairway.
Cross-section.
Yeah, cross-section of the stairway, or something that shows exactly what you propose
Profile
in that
view.
area.
Yeah, I have it on the plan, but we'll be sure to revise the plan to have that too.
Okay, that would be fine.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I don't have any additional questions.
John?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that this is a pristine lot right now, and anything you're doing there is getting rid of natural habitat, and that's from the street all the way down to the pond, and no way you can mitigate any of this on that lot, because that lot is currently natural, and I would not support any attempt for any work on that lot to be taken as mitigation for the construction that is there. I'm concerned, in the past, we have struggled approving plans on pristine lots like this within the 100-foot buffer because there's no way to mitigate. And I would, at a minimum, before I consider this any further, like to see what Jim was talking about. That is a concerted effort to find out how to take as much as possible of all the hardscape you're proposing completely outside of the 100-foot buffer. And again, we only have jurisdiction inside the 100-foot buffer, so we can't tell you what to do with your lawn outside of there. But I am also concerned that construction like this, a nice new house is going to have a nice, very green lawn that's going to have lots of chemicals put on it, and I think that's problematic.
The applicants don't have any desire to install a chemically altered lawn. If anything, they're quite amenable to having no manicured lawn. Certainly not in the 100-foot buffer zone and not even approaching the edge. So they're certainly willing to work with the commission on that topic because they understand the protection of the pond is paramount.
Okay, thank you. But I'd just like to reiterate Jim's questions about being inside the 100-foot buffer, having an accessory building that is even closer to the resource. I don't find that particularly acceptable. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Mark?
I guess one of my concerns would be the location of the workshop. I'm struggling with that. I think that eats up a lot of available, and the ability to maintain a little stronger vegetation further back up, I think, bests if that was taken out of the equation. I think that's all I can add at this moment.
Okay.
I do a quick question, if I may. What's the depth of the garage from the front wall going into the back wall? Do you know?
I might have a scale if you need it.
I can probably just use my fingers. Scale is very. Looks to be between 15 and 20 feet, I'm thinking, or.
Here you go. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's 1 to 20 here. Oh, nope, I was wrong. That's the scale.
30, just under 30 feet.
Inside depth is 30 feet?
Yeah, I'd have to split the floor plan to, yes, I believe it's 20 to 30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
And the garage is completely outside of resource areas. I know it's a little hard to see the buffer.
question for you. What are the sideline requirements on this lot?
This, the setbacks?
Mhm.
I don't know that off the top of my head. I would have to ask the surveyor.
Would you have
I think it's 25 feet from the way and then 25 feet from the road. But I can double check. I think it might be 10 from the side lot, but I can double check that as well.
Okay, because
Yeah.
you have 12.9 on one side, on the, I'm not sure which is the eastern side, it looks like, western.
From 88 Clearwater, next to 88 Clearwater.
Yeah.
They have 12.9.
And then 25 on the other side, so I mean, some of the lots
Yeah,
in
it's-
this have a
That's the way
10-foot setback.
side.
So
Yeah.
if that's the case, it would seem that you've got a lot of opportunity on the western side to move the whole structure out of the 100 or more out of the 100 than it presently is. You made a comment earlier that you didn't want to change the plan we have in front of us here. Why is that?
Oh, I don't believe I made a comment like that. I apologize if that came across. What I was saying that may have made you think that is, our surveyor wanted to check the positions to make sure we couldn't alter this at all, and he didn't believe that there was a way to change the existing position of the house. But the applicant is open to alterations to make this work.
Okay,
We're certainly not completely set in stone.
all right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the reason why it might be 5 from that other side is because that would be considered road frontage if it's a way.
Yeah.
So that's why one side is 12.9, because it only has to be 10, but on the road, it's not a road, it's, you know, it's a driveway essentially, but it has to be 25 feet from that.
I see, okay, all right.
Yeah,
that's-
because it's a listed way, we're 25 and a half, so we have to be the 25 off the front and back. But the side lot line would be the 10.
I see, okay, all right. I didn't recognize that way as being equivalent to a road.
Yeah, it's regulatory.
Yeah, so there's a jog on the back of the house adjacent to the deck, for example, on the other side of the sunroom. I mean, I look at the house and I say, well, it's easy to put that on the front, and you get rid of a big portion of the intrusion into the 100-foot buffer.
Wait, can I speak?
Certainly, sure.
Are you suggesting that the deck be on the front of the house?
No. No, to the right, to the left side of the deck, there's a.
Is that a room?
It appears to be opposite the sunroom from the deck.
That's the master bedroom.
Oh, okay. I understand why you'd like to have it there, but I'm just saying that's one of the biggest issues that you have as far as structures within the 100, within the buffer, in addition to the workshop, which I think could easily be placed, you know, on the front of the house or somewhere on the side of it, and still probably, the workshop, would that still be subject to the 25-foot setback? The wood, Mark?
It's over, it's
100
big
square
enough,
feet.
it's big
Yeah.
enough, yeah.
Well, I just have a question. I'm going back to Mark's question.
That's something to
when
look
you-
at. They asked about, Rich, yes, the owner, our potential owner asked about the reduction of size, and I said that would be something to look at too, but I think it sounds as if location, in proximity, because it's the closest, so if you can tweak the location a bit, that might be the better way to go.
Well, I just want to go back to the kind of where I think Mark was going, and you alluded to the depth of the garage being 30 feet. Why does the garage have that much depth to it? I mean, you could shorten that garage and move the whole house up. I don't know what the reason, I'm just questioning.
Yeah, there's a space above the garage. It's a guest bedroom and an office.
And then the other you've raised is potentially using what would otherwise be lawn to put in plantings, but it sounds like you're not planning to put a lawn in anyhow, so I'd sort of take that off the table, I guess. With respect to the proposed kayak canoe storage, is that, you're gonna have a rack, or are they just going to sit at the stairs?
Yeah, usually you would put a rack on the stair, kind of coming up off of it, just to keep them up off the ground, and then you don't have to bring them up and down the bank.
Okay, so when you provide us with the profile of the stairway, then we'd also want to see plans for the rack as well. So, any other comments from the audience, public? Any other comments? All right, hearing none. So I think you've got some guidance as far as input, as far as the commission is concerned, some of the issues that we would like to see addressed. And I would suggest that we ask that you come back with a revised plan. As Amy said, we're pretty full up the next meeting.
Yeah, we're really full the next meeting, so we'd prefer if you would be okay coming back for the 17th, and we would need plans a week prior.
Do you guys have anything to add? Because you have a chance
And
now
if,
if you'd like to.
yeah, if you want to come up to the mic, go for it, or you can use mine, I don't care.
I've really appreciated your guidance, Amy. It was very helpful when we walked through the land. I just want to reiterate that I'm not a new resident of Harwich. My family has been on Clearwater Drive for over 50 years. We care very much about the pond, the plantings and the vegetation. This would be our permanent residence. It would not be a seasonal home. That being said, I need to have some clarification on the ruling for having a full 100-foot complete pushback versus the 60-foot. I believe it was our understanding when we walked through that having the full dwelling past the 60-foot was the most important concern. And so I just wanted to have a better understanding of that.
Do you want me to attempt to answer that?
Yeah, take a shot, sure, yeah.
So the 60-foot is the kind of the hard and fast rule. Any activity within the 100-foot is jurisdictional, as you know. So on a vacant lot, in a lot in its natural state, when you do propose to do within the 100-foot buffer, you have to mitigate for that at that 2-to-1 ratio. When you have an undisturbed lot in its very natural state, it can be hard to do that. So that's why we encourage you to the greatest extent possible, because you to get the house as far away as possible, because you may not be able to meet that mitigation standard if you were, again, in the situation where you have a very native undisturbed lot. It's hard to meet that mitigation on site. So that's why we encourage, if you have a room outside of that, to minimize to the extent practical.
So essentially, you are suggesting we make the house smaller and move it back? Is that what I'm understanding? I'm just trying to get a grasp on what
I
would...
don't, I'm sorry, John, you want to?
I don't think, it's not our place to tell you how to design the house. So I personally would not tell you to make the house smaller or bigger or whatever. But my comment, really, and Amy repeated it, is that inside the 100-foot buffer, you're disturbing a natural, undisturbed lot. And mitigation is required, and we have recently provided the possibility of an alternative mitigation, but we don't necessarily have to approve that kind of mitigation. And historically, this commission has struggled one way or another to approve buildings that are going on a natural undisturbed lot like this one. So we're requesting that you reconsider the design of the house, whatever that takes. We're not architects. And reconsider the location of the workshop and try to find another way to satisfy your needs and desires for this home and reduce the impact on the lot, at least within the 100-foot buffer.
Do you consider the same weight placed on a deck versus the house structure? The entire house structure is past the 100-foot. It's really a deck that's in the 100.
It's your master bedroom, the sunroom, the deck, the patio.
It's
The larger zone to the buffer zone, so the buffer zone being
So see, that's what.
So is the buildability within the 60 feet or the 100 feet? Because I was told that the legal boundary is the 60 foot.
Our jurisdiction is within the 100 feet. Obviously, we have 0 to 60 is a no disturb zone.
Right.
There's no structures along that, but to the extent that you can minimize, or we can help you minimize the amount of structure that's in the 0 to 100, that's our effort.
And the 2-to-1 ratio of the payment is not acceptable for
Well,
that
again, you're on a native lot. There's really no opportunity for mitigation on this lot because it's already native.
So instead of mitigating, that's why they're asking you to minimize to the, a little bit. Not saying, we're not saying you have to get everything out of the 100. We want to see what you come up with.
Okay, okay.
But an effort to minimize
Okay.
because you can't mitigate. And again, we'd rather not, if I can say from my perspective, in lieu fees, they're great because we can improve other ones in town and that's what we would use that money for. But the primary concern is preserving the integrity of this lot while still granting you something that you can be happy with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I would say, I mean, I really don't think we should put more on the 3rd. Next available meeting after that would be November 17th, and we would need revisions by the 10th of November. Okay?
Any other, Hannah, do you have any other comments that you'd like to present?
I don't think I have anything else. Matt, do you have anything?
Nope.
If I may?
Yes.
The lot is scheduled to close, transfer ownership on the 2nd of October, November. Is it possible for us to make the meeting on the 3rd? We can ask the seller to make a change for the closing, but they've already pushed it out a couple of times, and so the buyers would like to have as a clear understanding as possible, without putting off the seller as minimal as possible.
Yeah. I have to go by Amy's guidance. I mean, if we're full up, there's really no way that we can get everybody in, the
Not
people
be
that are
here
already
till
scheduled
midnight.
on the agenda for that night.
It's up to you. It's up, I mean, we would need something within a week. We would need revisions within a week. But that's up to the commission to do. I'm telling you, we're full, but, and when I don't say that lightly, try to squeeze as many possible in as possible. You saw how heavy our agendas can be. This is actually a light one for us
I mean,
tonight.
is the purchase contingent upon this plan or something close to it?
Yeah.
I mean, from our perspective, I think everyone would agree that it's possible to put a home on this property that would probably become what they're looking to have.
Yeah.
But it's just that we need to see revised plans at this point. Jim, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Chairman, is that there have been enough issues raised tonight so that when they do come back with a revised plan, I foresee a fairly lengthy discussion of that revised plan Therefore, I think with Amy's guidance, it would not be appropriate for us to continue this to November 3rd, but I think we're going to need the time that continuing it till November, is the 17th, Amy, would give us to fully discuss the revised plan to an educated decision on this matter.
I agree with Jim's perspective. I don't think we should, what's gonna end up happening if we try to squeeze this into an already packed meeting is we're not gonna, in the end, be able to give attention to all the things that are on the agenda. I just don't think it's a good idea. By 10:30, everybody's burnt out here. After 4 hours, that's enough, and I think we should just leave it as it is, and hopefully you can push back your closing date by a bit more in order to accommodate this. I don't think that's our responsibility here.
So are you comfortable? Should we make a motion for the 17th?
I can tell you that the seller is very eager to put it back, and we've pushed it twice, and I understand their concern, but we're in a really difficult situation.
Is it possible to do a partial on the, like a very minimal, as a sort of, we come back?
You can work with Amy, and she can give you some guidance as to whether the revised plan will warrant minimal discussion, or if she
Pass
thinks that
muster?
it's, yeah, if she thinks that it's going to be problematic. I mean, that's the best really I can offer you at this time. If that's, if that's what this closing is weighing on, as I said, what you presented is close, I think. We've given you our guidance to what needs to be done, and I don't think that it's insurmountable. So.
Okay. So if we speak within a week, you can tell us if it's what your interpretation of it, if it looks like it's not in line with what the board has given us, then clearly.
Again, there are no guarantees from what Amy tells you, because we've overridden her before, much to her chagrin, but, but we.
I try to give the
work
best,
with her
like, I
guidance.
try to think how they would think, so. I still can't put John for the 3rd, though.
We have to take action tonight, one way or another.
Gotta continue.
We have to continue.
Either to the 3rd or the
Absolutely.
17th. I'm extremely booked in the next week, but I can try to fit in a meeting here. Okay?
You mean a meeting like outside of this?
Outside of this, yeah, between us. Okay?
Where does that accomplish though, Amy? I'm not sure where that.
Well, it gives them some sense of comfort as far as the closing.
Where you want to go.
But we're still continuing until the 17th, so.
Yes.
Nothing's definite until we meet,
Okay.
so.
So with that,
I move to continue the hearing on Zero Clearwater to November 17th.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
I do know off the
Have a
top
good
of
night.
my head, I have some time on Monday. But we can, want to send an email tomorrow, and we can sit down, okay? Mr. Chairman, I will be right back, but feel free and proceed. I'll be right there.
Next. The next item on the agenda is a notice of intent for 4 Shady Drive, 73 parcel X180 for a new dwelling and appurtenances. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm John O'Reilly, the engineer. This is Brian Hellauer.
Yes,
Pronouncing that right?
yeah, you did. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you over our proposal for this property. John has been working on it. We understand a little bit of the backstory and history here. And what we've put together, I think, is a low-impact proposal that fits all the requirements, and we wanted to just kind of begin the discussion and get your feedback and see where we are. So with that, I'll leave it to John to go into more detail.
Brian and his wife are pursuing this property, much like the previous applicant, pursuing this property for purchase, and this is part of his due diligence, their due diligence. We are on a lot that is 75 feet wide and about 138 feet deep. We do front on Sand Lake, and we have identified not only the edge of the pond, but also the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland, and it's been flagged in the field. We have 4 flags out there in the field. So we actually have laid out a house footprint to meet all the applicable zoning setbacks. Zoning setbacks here, 25 feet from the, 20 feet from the road and from the sidelines. And of course, 50 feet or 60 feet from the bordering vegetated wetland. So we have designed, it's a one-bedroom home. We've designed a one-bedroom septic system up on the property. The septic system is fully compliant with Title and Town of Harwich's sanitary regulations. And we have placed a 24 by 26 building footprint with a single car garage, which is a 14 by 22 building footprint. And we do have a deck on the south side, along the west side of the wetland side, with a set of stairs that lead down to the basement. A very small portion of the driveway is within the buffer zone, but we are identifying that as a permeable finish, whether it be something like that. We have graded the side of the lot to keep our drainage on our lot and not shed it off to the abutter to the north, to the south. We've stipulated that the roof runoff will be controlled either through stone trenches under the drip lines, but most likely through gutters, downspouts, and dry wells, which will be located on the north and south side of the building. We have respected the 60-foot setback for structures. We're 62 W, and we do establish a limit of work line at 51 feet. Much like the previous applicant, this is a vacant piece of property, and when we initially filed for it, I was requesting a variance. We are showing 1,000 square feet of revegetation within the limit of work line to help offset that variance request. I did get an email from Amy yesterday?
Monday, I think.
Monday? Okay.
Actually, I did over the weekend, because I'm a glutton for punishment.
That's right, it was Sunday night. You're right. And it had been a long while since I had been out to the site, and I 50-foot buffer. Based on Amy's suggestion, I went out and looked at the site again today, and I think that we can overcome the request for the variance for mitigation by looking at that area between the buffer zone, between the bordering vegetated wetland and the 50 buffer, because there is ample room out there to reestablish a strong shrub community between the house and the pond. There may be even some room to plant an applicable tree. Try not to put that in a view corridor or a future view corridor, but I think there's some opportunity that we can do that as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Obviously, based on just what I said and what Amy had referenced to me is, we would be coming back with a revised plan that would expand upon the revegetation, that 0 to 50-foot buffer. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Brian and myself are here to help.
Thanks, John. Amy?
Okay, so as I mentioned to the commission in my summary and on site, this is a new proposal. There was a proposal a year or two ago for this lot. Different engineer, different buyer, different everything. Is different from that in that the proposed structure is at least 60 feet away from the edge of wetland. Did take another look at the edge of, the wetland resource area because we have been in kind of drought times, but there is kind of a clear definition between wetland and upland on the property. I do agree with the delineation as presented. As Mr. O'Reilly stated, this is a small lot. It can only accommodate one bedroom dwelling because it is in a zone 2. So that's all that would be allowed. They have reduced setbacks from sides and so getting on to the structure itself that's within your jurisdiction, 550 feet. Looking at the mitigation requirement, that would be double that, so about 3,100. They are proposing to vegetate area within the limit of work, and that's about 1,000 square feet. Now, normally I wouldn't consider that as mitigation because it's disturbance and revegetation. However, when you go out to this site, it is fairly disturbed throughout that area. There was, in this neighborhood, saw a lot of tornado damage. It was actually much more heavily treed just a couple years ago. So I would consider that hatched area as mitigation because that was not a normal act that caused that. In addition, and more importantly, so what we look at for mitigation is that to the greatest extent practicable, you minimize what you're doing and you revegetate and you mitigate. And I think you have that area as we talked about via email. That area in the 0 to 50, I think, is prime candidate for restoration or for mitigation because it's fairly sparse there. Definitely put a shadbush serviceberry in there too. That understory tree that would really like being somewhat wet, or at least on that shaded slope. I see a vast possibility for improvement of habitat and definitely improve the runoff situation because there's some runoff going on down there. Potentially even some water quality because of better root infiltration there. Septic system is outside the 100-foot buffer as per the Board of Health regulations. So my recommendation is that they come with a revised planting plan for that area showing at minimum another 2,000-ish square feet of revegetation. And I think that can be accommodated in the 0 to 50. And again, I think that would potentially outweigh any environmental detriment that a one-bedroom dwelling closer to the road would have. So also they no-take letter from Natural Heritage, but that was because that no work was being proposed closer to the pond. Now that they're proposing planting closer to the pond, Heritage will look at it again. My guess is if everything is proposed, the plantings are proposed or applicable, could be nothing, for Heritage, it'd be nothing but a good outcome. But still, they have not officially, they want to relook at it again. So I would recommend that you continue the project for them to investigate the mitigation in the 0 to 50 area that's denuded.
Okay, thank you. Jim, do you have any comments?
I disagree with Amy that we should vote to continue this, and we would like to see a revised plan with the planting in the 0 to 50 area.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Jim and Amy, but I do like, what you've done there. You've kept everything out of the 60, the project that was here a couple of years ago or whatever. that wasn't done, and that was part of some of the issues, I think, so, this looks pretty good from that, and if you can do the mitigation area.
Having deja vu in the back row. I think these earlier applications, working with the 60s, so I got it.
All over again.
So, yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you. John?
No, I agree with the previous comments.
Sorry. Put my mask back on.
No remarks.
Okay.
No, you're fine, John.
You know, I just think I should take this opportunity just to point out that unlike the previous presentation that we listened to, this is a much smaller lot. I think the dimensions of this lot, minimal. I mean, you really can't get much smaller, I think, than a one-bedroom on this lot, or much larger anyhow. Suggests that there's really not much room to do much of anything other than what you've proposed to us as far as siting the building elsewhere on the lot or moving it closer to the road or anything like that. I mean, it is what it is. You've done, I think, the best you can as far as putting it where it needs to be to meet the requirements of zoning and everything else. On top of which, unlike the prior lot too, which was completely native, I mean, undisturbed, had a chain link fence around it, there weren't even paths going through that prior lot. You know, I think this one does show that the effect of the tornado going through here, the understory of this lot is gone. There's nothing there. So it, from my perspective, gives a lot of opportunity for mitigation on it, unlike what we saw in the prior presentation too. So I think you've done a good job. I think it needs more work to show the additional. I think you're going to be close to a little over 2,000 square feet in additional mitigation down in the 0 to 50, which I think will benefit that area significantly based on how it's been essentially denuded, I think, of any native plants down there. So you've got an opportunity to do some, to make it work, I think, as it's proposed with some minor changes to it as well. So those are my comments. I do think we need to see a revised plan on it, but that's where I am at this point. But I would like to open it up. I know we do. I believe we have some butters that might want to have comments here. If you would like to.
Bill, if you want to hold my mic, you're welcome to do so. Just don't pull too much.
Good afternoon, or good evening. I'm Bill Riley. I represent the LeClairs, who are the next-door neighbors. And we spoke briefly with John and Mr. Hellauer out in the hallway. The LeClairs have been there quite a while. The property has always been wild and undisturbed, but for tornadoes. And so for them, it's a big change in the neighborhood, and they're very concerned about how the changes are accomplished and the kind of mitigation that be required. So we wanted the board to know that we are concerned and we can all work together to get it done in a manner that's satisfactory for all.
That's the goal here. I think we'll probably come up with something that everybody would be hopefully amenable to. So we'll do the best we can.
Great, thank you very much.
Hello. Hi.
Yes. Is someone on the phone?
Sorry. Oh.
Okay.
I think that's my wife.
Sorry. I'm listening. Hello.
All right, thank you. So, again, after hearing the last one too, we're pretty till when, Amy? I mean, we're already adding to the 17th, all right?
We can do the 17th.
Okay, yeah, if that's fine with you, it's fine with us.
Yeah, and then we'd love a plan a week prior. Feel free and get it to me sooner. I'm happy to make comments.
I might actually ask, I know you're busy, you just said you were busy, but
well, the beginning to middle of next week. I could probably do a walkthrough at the end of next week. If you want to shoot me an email, maybe,
Some dates, and then we can just take a walk.
happy to do that.
That'd be great, thank you.
Good. So can we have a motion?
I'll move to continue to
November 17th.
November 17th.
November 17.
And a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. We will see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and feedback. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh. Valid excuse then.
Good night. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, everyone. So the next items we have on the agenda, order of conditions. First one is for 25 Bellbrook Road, map 23, part 6.
This was for approval, I mean, you approved the demo and rebuild of a house with conditions. Let me know if you have any changes.
Okay. Assume I had a chance to look at these.
Sorry, 2 of them came out, this one didn't, this one was out a little earlier, but the other 2 came out today, because it's
Yeah.
nuts.
The one comment I had on this one, Amy, was on item number 12 under the general conditions, your expiration date is right around the corner.
Oh, did I not change that?
The date's right, probably, but the year, I think you might want to
Yeah, I
push out.
gotta change that out, but that should be 2024. Good catch.
Okay.
That would've been really
I
hard.
had special condition number 5.
Mm-hmm.
It says, new structure shall be
Shall
meet.
meet, no B meet, no B.
No B, right.
Just a meet.
Yeah, okay, that's it.
Great.
I probably thought be in compliance, shall meet compliance, I put the,
Anyone have any other comments, changes, addendums, revisions, and hearing none? Motion on this?
I'll move to approve the order of conditions with the minor edits previously cited for 25 Bellbrook.
You're on a roll tonight, huh? A second?
I started in the beginning, but then.
So you can second. All in favor?
Aye.
I did about 3 of
All right, next one is order of conditions for 49 Snowing Road, map 15, parcel N2, reconstruction of existing pier ramp, float and dredging. The only comments I had, Amy, is under special conditions.
mm-hmm,
Item number 3, it says your decking is to be timber with at least half-inch spacing between planks.
mm-hmm.
Item 11 says the decking shall be through flow or
Oh,
similar.
I copied that from Snow and, sorry, from Zero.
Yeah, so one or the other. I assume you take off the decking to be
taking-
timber, or what?
No, this one, they want timber.
They do?
This one is, through flow is ebon, this one.
Okay.
Oftentimes with docs, I do a little copy and pasting, and I miss that, so thank you.
What is? I don't remember. Green Heart's it's a South African wood, isn't it?
It's
Green Heart?
basically, it's non-treated. It's
Yeah.
natural lumber.
It's
As an
getting,
aside, conflict because CCA, can be bad for the environment here, but Green Heart lumber from the rainforest, so it's like, well, what do you,
it's getting to be an
denuding the
endangered.
rainforest in
Yeah.
order to not have an impact chemically up here, but
Yeah.
Right.
anyway.
Any other comments on this? John, can we have a motion?
Oh, sure, why not? I move that we approve the order of conditions for 49 Snow Inn Road.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, Amy?
Yes.
Yes?
This is Todd Turpin from Coastal. One of the comments we had on these orders of conditions was the time of the floats to come out.
Okay.
The special order, the special conditions state only 5 months, where the bylaws require 6 or allow 6.
Okay.
From 5/15 to October 15. October 15 seems a little early.
I
We
feel-
prefer to be November 15.
I don't have an issue with that. I took it from standard conditions, but I see your point that it actually does say 6 months in our regulations. So I don't, there's no, because no in-water work can occur at any rate, I don't see any reason for November 15th, not to switch it to November 15th.
That's fine. So
We're talking about the one we just voted
yes,
to approve.
yes, number 10.
Yeah, from May 15th to November 15th.
Want to
I'll
modify your
move
motion?
to add that change to the order of conditions for 49 Snelling Road.
It's seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes then. Thank you. Will you do the last one?
Same would
Thank
be
you.
the-
I have some changes on that.
Same would be the case for the next one then, Evan.
Okay, so I guess I'm through this. I have actually one on 0 Snow Inn Road, which is special condition number 17. It's a little unclear, the duration of the requirement for 30 bushels. The first sentence should include a statement that that's for 3 years. It's sort of stated in a different way at the end, but not clear.
I can do that.
Anyone else?
So just to let you know, I had, John, you picked up on it because that's my newest rendition, but I did add the condition, which were talked about at the meeting. The salt marsh restoration had been, to be completed for like at least, and in place for about 2 years, so we can see how it's doing before certificate of compliance, things like that. This is the dock with through flow.
Right. So is that properly reflected there? I
Yes.
didn't pick that up.
Yep.
Okay. So, anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Amy, one more question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sorry, who is this from Coastal?
This is Todd Turcotte.
Oh, hi, Todd.
Hi, sorry if it's coming through.
No problem. What was your comment about, Evan?
The question is on 12, special condition 12. It states that the off-season storage shall be 100 feet from the wetland buffer, but the regulations state 50 feet. I just want to be sure we're clear on that. Which one is it?
Traditionally, now we've been conditioning 100 feet away, be it up at the Evans property. But I would think that, I mean, you couldn't on the water side of this property.
Right.
Get outside the 50 anyway.
So it was just a question more, just for clarification. If that's the way we're going, if that's the way you're going, that's fine. I just wanted to ask it and understand
That's a
it.
good point. We probably should clarify in our regulations,
Is
but
is the intent that he would store it on his property?
I don't know where the Evans are gonna store it.
I mean, if he's not putting,
Yeah, but we wouldn't do it within the, adjacent to the waterway. So it was just more of a clarification what what the regulation said versus what the order was saying, just for clarification.
oh,
You could say outside the 50 in a existing disturbed area, or I have it outside the 100, but.
yeah, I mean, there's a place outside the 50 or inside the 50 to put it, right?
Not without being in violation, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Evans wanted to put it somehow in their driveway, which is, I mean, it's a small area up across the street. That's fine,
Yeah.
but, essentially, I mean, it kind of looks like off-site storage for this one. Just because of the complexities of storage.
We're trying to go outside the 100, but would you be amenable to saying outside the 50, or outside the 100, subject unless approved by the conservation administrator?
That would be great.
Sure.
And you changed the dates already, right, Amy? For the float store,
November 15th.
so I'll make a motion to approve the order of conditions for Zero Snow and Road with the recommended changes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion, it passes. Next item on the agenda is a request for an extension for 50 Hill Drive, which was an upgrade of an existing cesspool to a Title V septic system.
It was also for fixing of a foundation and a deck addition. I'm not sure if the owner, Keith O'Donnell, is on the line. Keith, if you are, can you want to speak to this? Okay, well, essentially, I think we need some more information here. This project, this order of conditions was issued in 2013. They basically, it was extended for 2 years until 2018, and was extended for 3 more years. So this project's been alive for 8 years. Just looking and seeing who's still online now. So the email we got was that where they're at is there's been design, architecture, and engineering work have been done. Topographical survey, preparation of an existing conditions plan, topographical plan. Currently working to get bids from contractors for the work to be performed for the piece of foundation which is failing. To my knowledge, planting has been done and the septic has been done, but
It has?
I don't think we need, I think we need more information.
Yeah.
So this one is small. I'd recommend you put it on the next agenda.
All right.
And see if he can be present or provide a little bit more detail, because, again, another extension after an 8-year-long permit is,
Yeah.
I think it needs to be looked at a little bit
Yeah,
more.
I would tell Mr. O'Donnell, if he can't get it, if he can't make it to the next meeting with an explanation of this, that we may well close it out.
Well, then he couldn't apply for a new
Understood.
permit, yeah.
I understood.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. So, I'll put November 3rd agenda.
All right. Do we need a vote on
Yeah,
this?
you mind, just
Yeah.
in case, yeah.
Okay. We have a motion to, I'll make a motion to extend the request for an extension for 55 Drive to the November 8th,
November 3rd.
November 3rd meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have 2 requests for certificate of compliance. Both are at 109 Riverside Drive. One is alteration and maintenance of an existing pier. The other is removal and reconstruction of a single-family dwelling and septic system.
We're recommending certs for both. The first one for the pier, there's a slight deviation, but not on the water side. Essentially, there's the pier, there's a piece of it farther landward, essentially a ramp. There was essentially a little piece of ramp that was on the water side to connect it better and longer. So there was a red line plan in your Dropbox. We didn't think it was substantial. It made sense. And then the next one was for the house, and the house was done, approved. So we recommend certs of compliance for both file numbers.
Okay. So I'll move we approve the certificates of compliance for 109 Riverside Drive, the alteration and maintenance of the pier, removal and reconstruction of the dwelling and septic system. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Minutes, we did not have, Amy?
No, Melissa's been banging them out, but she's almost done, so you'll have them next time.
Okay. All right, good. Go ahead. Any other issues, items?
Tomorrow, just a reminder, 11 a.m., 28 Wawa Tacey for the DEP onsite. Again, typically, so it'll be the DEP circuit rider, who is named Callie. for this one, and then essentially what'll happen, because I think you're all going. Mark's
Good.
going,
Good, okay.
and Brad. So, I posted the agenda, we're all good to go. But, they'll give their side of things, the applicants, because they're the ones who are appealing our decision, so they'll typically get to go first. Probably describe why they think it should be approved with a superseding order. Then we get the chance, I usually speak, I go through the reasons for the denial, correct any what I see are discrepancies in what they're saying, and then go through chapter and verse of the sections of the act in which we denied them. It's really not a question-answer session. It's for Callie, the DP circuit rider, to have a chance to view the project, photograph it, take all testimony, and then go back, and they have 90 days to either uphold or issue a superseding order overturning our decision. So it's only under the act for tomorrow. The commission's position as a whole was the project was denied under the act. So you can certainly ask questions of Callie. There really cannot be back and forth, between the applicant and the commission. Let you know also, while we have a minute, we have an excellent new AmeriCorps member, Jody Monroe from South Carolina, started 2 weeks ago with me 2 days a week, Melissa, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So they're very, very motivated, and they're already getting a lot done. So you'll be seeing more of Jody. Jody's very interested in forestry, and Jody and I have been doing a lot of tree maintenance on conservation lands. To that end, we will be having work days shortly that I will invite you out to.
Good.
May involve burn piles.
Okay.
Trying to think, I can't think of much else off the top of my head.
You had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I thought, about a legal update at some point, an executive session for a legal update.
Yes, we're doing an executive session next meeting.
We are? Okay, good.
So will we be starting early in that case?
Start early and stay late, too.
Well, actually, can you all start at 6 next time? Can we do an executive session at 6?
Fine with me.
Fine with me.
Be easier for council, right?
I don't know if they'll be present,
All right,
but I'd rather start a little early, a little late.
yeah.
Oh, wait, we already do that. Yes, and I'll give you an update on North Road as well.
All right,
I did
Good.
send you an email to that effect.
yep,
It's unfortunate that it came to this, but
very, I agree.
didn't need to.
Yep.
I feel like there's more, but I'll just probably end up sending you an email if I have any more updates to give you. But other than that, so let's go home and watch the game,
Okay,
unless
good.
you have something.
I have nothing else. Anybody else have any comments? Motions?
I move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Ooh, I haven't heard that in
That was
4 years.
emphatic. I do have things for you to sign, so I am out. These are
So we can't
Brad
throw
and,
I tell you, you were full of movement tonight.
it is a full.
Is that what you said?
We